you're on. They're on. He's on. He's got it.
Got it? Yep, okay.
If the driveway has to be cleared so that the sun can melt it.
Yeah, you gotta get as much as you can.
I can watch from live chat. I've never done that before.
There's no place to put the snow, so they make a snowball.
What I do
We're
is
good, Glenn.
I only have one
Glenn.
side like grass. This is stone
Glenn.
all here in my garage. So I come in with the plow and I go.
It's on.
It's I still got a shovel in front of the door.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February the 18th, 2025. It's a little after 7 p.m. I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Linda Grappo?
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Andy Perez?
Selectman Pozo is excused. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, agenda review. I'd like to add under new business, item F, the EMPG grant resolution.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous? Anything else? Moving on to the approval of our minutes from our regular meeting from February 3rd.
We'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any discussion, corrections? All in favor? Unanimous? Item 5, Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once. Care to speak? Just give your name into the microphone so they can hear you on YouTube.
Samantha Beam. Hi, everyone. I just came to introduce myself. I was born and raised in Winsted. And
Can you,
recently-
can I
Yeah,
have
sure, sorry.
Because you can't hear it.
You can sit
You can go ahead and sit.
Sit.
We have people watching on YouTube, so they'd
Yeah,
like
there
to be
you
able to hear you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Samantha Beam. I was born and raised in Winsted, and I just wanted to come and introduce myself. I'm recently moving back into Litchfield County, and I work for William Pitt Sotheby's Realty as a realtor. I know the town is putting up a lot of town-owned properties for sale, and I just wanted to, again, introduce myself and just kind of offer what Sotheby's has in terms of marketing services, just the opportunity to better market the town-owned properties, and just look to see if you had any requests for proposals coming up for realtors, or just anything to be a little bit more involved in that aspect. So.
Thank you and
Thank you.
welcome back.
Item 6, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's catch up here. This report's for February 3rd to February 17th. I'll start off with a personnel update. Pleased to report that we expect to have a possible appointment for a new fire chief at our next meeting. The candidate is currently completing a background check process and awaiting fire department approval. This individual brings extensive experience to the position and will be a valuable asset to the town. To be continued on that, but I believe we should be able to, at our first meeting in March, introduce the candidate and have you all decide if you want to appoint this individual to our fire chief position. That's been open for quite some time. Moving on, we have extended an offer to a building official position, which is currently under consideration by the candidate. We initially sought to find a certified building inspector, but received no applications from certified candidates. The current prospect is a town resident who has committed to obtaining the certification. He brings significant relevant experience, including extensive background in contracting and over 20 years of service as a lieutenant in the Waterbury Fire Department. So exciting to see if that individual accepts the offer and then obviously goes off and gets certified. We did bring up, would he leave, would he be willing, and I can tell you that this gentleman has all the desire in the world to stay right here in Winsted and no desire to leave for another town. He answered all of the panel's questions with just absolutely great answers, and I truly hope that he accepts, and I think he will complete that office of the complement that we're looking to do. Moving on to the budget process, our budget review continues. After analyzing the financials of organizations receiving town funding, we discovered that several maintain strong cash positions and asset holdings better than our municipality. And then based on these findings, we're proposing reduced funding. Obviously, that'll all become available when we release the town manager's budget. But as promised, we did complete our grand list and did file it with OPM. I do have copies briefly to share with you after I run. Well, why don't we share with it now? 1, 2, 3, going that way. Easier for you all to follow along. 2, 3, 4. Going that way. Okay, so where to start? The grand list total came in at $1,011,123,362 compared to last year's grand list of $1,025,560,682. You can see each category. I will note that the elderly homeowners grand list, the software that we're currently running, no longer includes the elderly homeowners. It doesn't subtract off that portion. So you really have to take the $13 million and add it into the 869 number that you're seeing. We kept the current collection rate, which we can discuss during the budget, but you'll see that the real estate grand list dropped just under $5 million. Not the greatest story, but the real telling sign, and we've been warning this, and that also does include the fully disabled veterans, which ended up netting about $1.734 million of loss of grand list revenue with the new state law that gives total and permanent disability to our veterans. Moving on to motor vehicle grand list, which I had been warning about. The motor vehicle grand list took a hit of about $13.7 million in value. Personal property grand list actually grew $2.3 million. And then a number we just batted around right now is the BAA adjustment. We put at $2.5 million. It is year 3 after the reassessment, and we feel that the BAA adjustments won't be as much as they have been in the past because it's kind of has floated out. So in all, the grand list has dropped $14,444,320. What does that ultimately mean when you apply it to the current mill rate of 27.24? It equates to $393,463 in loss of revenue. Before we move on, I'm going to pause, see if there's questions, and then I can continue on with the town manager's report.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, I guess the personal property grand list, this was the area that we were having audited, right?
We
And
were.
So is this the money that was found so far in that audit?
Happy to report it is not the money that we have found in the audit. This was stuff that we found in the assessor's office that found additional personal property that wasn't being declared, and she did on her own. He and she did on her own.
Well, that's good news, because about $2 million equates to about, what, 40,000 in taxes? 45,000 in taxes, roughly.
Roughly.
And then you were audited and found a little bit of money in that.
Correct.
So when will we know the rest of this audit because of what we have in the current budget? And then what does that mean for next year's budget with, because you put 300 in?
Yep.
For the audit?
Yep.
And then we got next year, so do we know what's
The
happening
goal
with
would
that
be
audit?
before Board of Assessment Appeals meets and finalizes. So this was the M1 that we filed. We do have to file a final grand list with the OPM office, and that's after the BAA. So, and those meetings will happen end of March. I think it's March 20th. By March 20th, I hope to have a bigger bow on this and have all the adjustments from the BAA and anything that the personal property audit had found. They've either, agreed to the terms, disagreed with the terms, got them taken away. but by March 20th, we should have a final number of what the grand list should look like. It's gonna move a little bit, but we're not gonna,
Oh, what's the audit that, the firm that we hired?
Yep.
And paid the fees to?
the
For
50
the
to
audit,
53,000.
right, so we paid 53,000. And to date, we have found how much in tax dollars?
To date, I can tell you, we found a little over $40,000.
Okay, so when will we know if we find other tax dollars?
They are still in review of it, and I have asked that question repeatedly. They are promised me in March, we should have all the revenue that they've hoped that they could get us accounted for, and all of the audits will be wrapped up
In March?
in March. And I will continue to pressure them for that number. We've had several meetings with the assessor's office and that firm. No better way to put this than I am disappointed in the results that we're yielding and the meetings that we had. I'm optimistic, obviously, but I am highly disappointed so far in the work that's being completed and what they were able to not find or find.
Other questions?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe we could, maybe after this one is, you sent us the audits. What was our plus minus for 24, 25?
Off the top, I saw it and now I forgot the number, and I don't have the audit in front of me. I can email that out. You're talking general fund?
Yeah, how much money went, you know, the plus minus?
plus minus?
From the end of the year, was it 400, 500, 600?
It was less than $1 million,
Yep.
and before I leave tonight, I can get that number, because I know exactly what page, I think it's on page 21, why I remember that, but I can get that number.
Thank you.
Anything else? Continue.
Any other questions on the grand list? Okay. So that has been filed, obviously, we sent it off today. The audit, obviously, as you were aware, was completed last week. We've sent that off as well. As you probably read, there were two significant deficiencies. One was the way we reported grants and tracked grants, and the other was the purchasing policy. Happy to report, if you happen to read the deficiencies that were attached in the letter, that both of those policies have been implemented in the audit, so we can actually take those off the list, that we were able to complete those two items for the auditors as soon as they made mention that although the letter will be attached with our audit, in that letter also stated that both of them have been addressed and taken care of. The property listings, all the municipal properties have been listed on the MLS. My office has sent notification letters to all abutting properties owners, providing contact information for all interested parties. As of right now, I have not received any offers for any of the properties that were listed, but as soon as we get offers, I will make sure the board is aware of every offer that we receive on any of the properties that we have listed. Moving on, OSHA compliance. We are still waiting the final report. Our team continues to make substantial progress addressing items discussed during the closing conference. Important to note that the OSHA inspector has expressed particular satisfaction with our work to date and the completion documents submitted to the agency. Notable, the inspector commented that our proactive approach to compliance stands out amongst other organizations he has evaluated, which is a great sign that when we do get the final report, and we do have the opportunity to sit down with one of the managers of OSHA, that any fines that may be assessed, we might be looking at a very small fine based on the proactive approach we've been taking on all of the items that were addressed. And winter operations, the winter has obviously presented its challenges with storms frequently occurring late at night or during weekends. We are carefully managing the overtime expenses and prioritizing snow removal and road maintenance during regular business hours. Obviously, that can't be done all of the time, but a prime example is not this past storm, but the storm before. They had worked all night Saturday night and into Sunday. It became Sunday afternoon, which is a double time. We met as a team, or we talked on the phone. We weren't in person. They asked, hey, Paul, we're at double time right now. The ordinance says we have 24 hours to remove the snow. Why don't we knock off now, and then we'll come back at straight time on Monday morning, so the town isn't, bleeding anymore from overtime, especially at double time. I really appreciated the crews for bringing that, obviously, and making the suggestion without even me offering it up, because when you're paying double time where they're literally going to be back 10 hours later and can do it at straight time, it is a true savings to the town. We are replenishing our salt supply. We did have 2 tractor trailers delivered salt supply today. This storm obviously was a very unique one. Speaking with the crews all weekend long, they'd rather have 30 inches of snow than what we had with snow, ice, rain, then refreeze. It really made everything a hard brick, where even our machinery isn't cutting through most of that ice. The salt is almost rendered useless. The sand is, traction. We've gotten several phone calls from residents of different, troubled areas around town. Happy to report, when we get those troubled areas, we go out immediately and address those areas, so the residents are happy with seeing, them. We're obviously trying to be as proactive as we can, but a lot of times water happens that we're unaware of. It ices, and, we have slippery conditions, but our team's constantly on it. They did knock out today right on time, but they'll be back in the morning salting everything and trying to make it as safe as possible. Fortunately, schools were closed today, so we didn't have to worry too much about the buses. But school is going to go back, and we're still going to be below freezing until the end of the week. And fortunately, the storm that was supposed to hit Thursday is going to go below us. So looking at the 10-day forecast, I think we may be behind us with snow, but we're trying. And last but not least, I know I mentioned it when EDC was in here, but Restaurant Week begins on the 21st of March through the 29th. So far to date, we have 22 restaurants signed up for Restaurant Week. So I'm very much looking forward to that. You'll start to see a lot of marketing. I was just over with EDC before this meeting. They filmed the video today. They don't know if they're going to release it, but I'll be interested to see what that video looks like. But 22 restaurants signed up for Restaurant Week for the 21st through the 29th of March. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Questions?
I just got one quick one. I was approached by a store owner. Whose responsibility is it on Main Street to open up from the road to the sidewalk? How they pile the snow on the gutter, and then, you got to have obviously an opening that would bring you to the business. I don't know if we have an ordinance on that.
We don't have an ordinance on that, and that's one of the reasons why we extended the parking ban this past weekend, is that we wanted to clean those gutter lines as much as we possibly can. I saw our maintainer out there today, Louise, and he was out there trying to move as much as he possibly could in front of town, and it was just an absolute
Solid
brick
rock.
of ice. And I saw him, and he was chiseling, and a little piece would break off. So this storm was a unique storm, and no excuses, obviously, but we haven't seen the ice like this in probably several years. We're out there, we're trying. Troy, you probably know, even the biggest machine in the world is having the hardest time trying to move these blocks of ice.
You're not gonna.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the town was responsible for the business.
We're trying to do as much as we can. We know the importance of obviously Main Street businesses, but even our big machinery isn't breaking through these blocks of
I'm
ice.
in the same boat.
You're in the same boat. And that's one of the reasons why we extended the parking ban, is we wanted to try and clean those gutter lines as best as we
Yeah,
could.
you don't have time for that.
Other questions?
The position for the building
Yes.
inspector, is there a clause, are you able to put in the clause that if he were to leave, that we would recoup the training expenses?
Under negotiations with the union right now, so.
Because I saw that, like with the police officers, they made that state law that when a police officer goes to the academy in one town and then another town, like Torrington, had to pay for that.
Yep.
So I would imagine that this training piece, that the towns are paying people to do, and then somebody gets trained and then goes off, that I hope that somehow that gets incorporated in there. Hopefully he doesn't want to leave, hopefully he's, here, because he lives here and wants to do that.
So I will note that the applicant had absolutely no issue with paying it back. Now it's just a matter of getting the union to agree to it. So the applicant had absolutely zero issue. It was going back to some of the great answers that he gave the panel, was he wants to be here. He truly does.
Well, I know it's good, but, it's still a business transaction, so as long as you have it moving towards the inclusion within the,
Yes. Yep, definitely.
Anyone else? Item 7, Finance Director's Report. Our Finance Director is not here tonight. As of January 31st, 2025, we are at 78.02% of revenue, $31,836,736. And total expenses are 57.66%, $23,527,780.
I think it's important to note, if we look at fiscal year '24, at this time last year, we were at, on the revenue side, we were at 83.3% collected revenue. I think a lot of the percentage drop is the way we build things. People were a little confused because we had to send out that second bill. But our tax collector is working feverishly to try and get as much money into the coffers as she possibly can. And then on the flip side of it, on the expense side of things, last year we had expended 62.84% of the budget. This year, we have appropriated only 57.66% of the budget. We are way beyond the halfway point, but we are looking at every dollar and making sure, is this a value dollar? Because I do understand, and we all understand, the importance of establishing, our general fund and trying to return as much surplus money as we can. So we are looking at everything that we can.
Item 8, correspondence. Anyone have anything? Item 9, boards and commissions.
Okay, we've had some people starting to take notice of the openings in our boards and commissions, which is good. Tonight, I'm going to start with a reappointment. I'd like to make a motion that Linda Grappo gets reappointed to RRDD number 1, term to expire 12/2027.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Okay,
Abstaining? 501.
under resignations, we'd like to thank Mo Gableman for his time and service over the years. We appreciate it. I'm sad to see you go. Under considerations, we have 2 applicants. The first one is Selena Collier. She'd like to join the Laurel Commission. I spoke with her and vetted her, and a very energetic woman looking to keep our tradition with the Laurel Commission going. I think she'll be a great fix, and we will appoint her next month. We also have another gentleman by the name of Christopher Bourne. He's in the wrong spot here. He wants to join the Economic Development Commission, and me and Bill got to speak with him, and again, another good candidate. And we're pushing an appointment forward due to an emergency for voting for the loss of Mo Gableman. So I'd like to make a motion that John Prevsnick be appointed to the RRDD number 1, term to expire 12/2025.
Second.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Bill. All in favor?
no, we have
Or
questions.
discussion?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
As a board member, I didn't even know Mo was, we had talked about him possibly leaving the board, resigning from the board. But I don't understand why this never went out in public so that other people from other townspeople who are familiar with our DD1 could apply for the position on the board. And I don't see why it's an emergency appointment when there are 7 members on the board. We always have a quorum at the meetings. Why is this an
So-
emergency?
The town of Winchester has 4 members on the board.
Right,
New Hartford has 3.
right,
Hampstead has 2.
right.
If there's an open seat from Winston does not have the majority of the board, or the proper number of seats. We do have the budget coming up and the future of solid waste direction.
When's the
Whether-
next meeting?
The next meeting for RRDD one, next Monday. We
So
tried-
nobody emailed us, nobody told us anything. We just go out and get somebody that you knew, and nobody has an opportunity to ask for anybody else or vet anyone else? I mean, how did you know Mo Gableman resigned, and when did he resign?
He resigned last week.
Last week, and you didn't decide to even let us know? We just come through with a candidate that's very connected in your Republican town committee? And how did he find out there was an opening to be able to say, yeah, I'd like to do that?
Well, it was a Republican seat that he'd be replacing.
But we've had a lot of unaffiliateds go into a lot of positions on boards. It's not a Republican seat, it's a seat. And you can only have, we know that you probably couldn't put a Democrat in there because of the numbers of people. But there was no chance for anybody else or there was no communication about it.
Okay.
I can't remember any time, though, when we've been sent an email when there's been a resignation on any board. So
Yeah,
that's
but
not
you're-
something that's ever
But
happened.
you're resigning and appointing immediately without letting anybody know. Other than we see it here, when we get it within a couple days of the meeting. I know there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, I just think, well, you know what I think. I'll just stop.
Duly noted.
Anything else? So it's an RRDD one appointment, which means I abstain from the vote. So it's up to the board, whatever they would like to do.
So it was seconded, was it seconded?
Yes, we are in
Yes.
discussion.
We're
Yep.
in discussion, so we just vote on it.
Okay, all in favor? 3, opposed? Abstaining? 3 abstentions, 303. Next.
Mr. Mayor and Board, just for the public that may be watching, inland wetlands, I know at the bottom of the sheet, it does say that there's 3 members that are opening. There are some potential resignations that may be becoming, just for certain reasons of schedules. So I ask you, and I ask the general public who may be watching or watching this later, if you're interested in inland wetlands, please, come forward, talk to our committee. We do need some members to serve on that board. And please, we may get into a desperate where we may not be able to call a quorum. If 2 or 3 additional people that may be looking to come off do come off, where now we're into a quorum issue where we won't be able to meet the quorum. So I will continue to go back out on our website and our social media pages and advertise the openings, but inland wetlands is at a crucial level of trying to get some new members put on that board. So thank you for allowing me to get on a soapbox for a second for that.
And that's 3 regular members?
3 regular members that are currently open right now, and speaking with different commissioners and speaking with Mr. Green, there's at least 2, possibly 3 members that may be looking to come off for no other reason than just commitment and schedules that they can't make meetings. So we do need inland wetland members.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
We're moving on to item 10, unfinished business. Nothing is listed. Item 11, fiscal year 26 budget schedule.
So in your packet was a 2-pager of the 2026 budget schedule. We'll quickly run down. As you see on or before Tuesday, February 18th, the grand list is signed off by the assessor's office, which obviously we met. Thursday, March 6th, 2025, Finance Town Manager will hold the CIP meeting number 3 to present the final CIP plan to be included in the town's manager's proposed budget. So that's obviously coming up. And then on Saturday, March 15th, it will not be Saturday, March 15th. It'll probably be sent to you Friday before I leave here. But by charter, by March 15th, I have to submit the proposed budget with a cover letter to all of you, but expect that to probably come in on March 14th. Moving down on March 25th, the Board of Selectmen, and at its discretion, the Board of Education hold a joint public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2026 Board of Education budget. The Board of Education actually wanted to do a joint meeting of both budgets. We felt that it would be entirely too long, so we're just going to do the Board of Ed on March 25th. On March 31st, the Board of Assessment Appeals concludes all of the real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle hearings by the state. The final BAA adjustments will be determined. April 7th will be our public hearing for the proposed 25 town budget. February 14th will be our second public hearing on the proposed budget. Switching over to the second page, April 21st is the last regular scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting where they may decide any proposed budgets to go to the annual town meeting. April 22nd is held in case we needed to go to a special meeting. And then on April 25th, the Board of Selectmen must make budget decisions by the state in time to, at the absolute latest, 15 days prior to the town meeting, which is set to be on Monday, May 12th, is the annual town budget. So we have to finalize the budget at least 15 days prior. Not saying that we're gonna, have everybody come out on a Friday, but that is the last possible date that we could make any budget changes before sending it to the annual town budget meeting on May 12th. We are suggesting that the referendum be held on May 27th. That's obviously going to be up to the Board of Selectmen. And then if budgets end up failing, which hopefully they do not, the dates continue of potential referendums down the line. But our goal that we've been stating from day one is to present a fair budget to our taxpayers, a needs budget versus a needs and wants budget, and hopefully get it done on the first try. Any questions on the budget schedule?
Just one thing about the budget when we go to Pearson, it would be good if you and the board could find a way to get the meeting on YouTube. I think all you really need is the internet connection in Pearson. I think you could do a small little camera or even a cell phone for that matter near the podium, just so that everybody has it. But if the schools must have a small video camera that can be plugged into a computer that could broadcast through the live YouTube channel.
We did do that at one of the budget meetings last year.
We did it at Gilbert. I think it was the third meeting that we held. We had Gilbert put it on their Gilbert TV channel.
Right, but I think it should go on the Board of Selectmen YouTube channel.
Agreed.
And it wouldn't take that much, in terms of technology to do that.
Had I known at the time when Mr. Chagru, who graciously, was able to film our last budget, had I known at the time it was going to be on Gilbert TV, I would have. But when he said, "Oh, we can do that," I thought it was going to be on.
Well,
our
luckily
YouTube
Gilbert
channel.
has the technology because, there used to be a time that you could broadcast on the TV, the cable TV from Gilbert. They had an actual feed into their building. And I don't know if the feed is still there from channel, 194 now? Or whatever we broadcast here. But they did have that actual feed, so I would imagine that there could be from that one, but I'm talking about the one at Pearson.
Other comments? Moving on to item B, 2505, proposed line item transfer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first one is 2505, which is a recommendation to move $25,000 from the labor and skilled professional line of the police department to the maintenance of vehicle line. So this has been batted around for a few weeks now, and what I was ultimately looking for was, which you'll see on, I believe, the third page, a line item description of what each of these vehicles are going to need from February 1st through June 30th. You'll see that there's oil changes, filters, tire rotations, brakes. That totals $12,083.33. Vehicle specific repairs needed as of 2/5. You'll see the 4 or 5 items there, which totals $5,500. And moving on down to open invoices of items that need to get done is $2,167.44, for a grand total of $19,750.77. We are asking, obviously, for $25,000 because there are some other items that come up from time to time. As we all know, we all own vehicles, that something can break and all of a sudden, we now need to go out and get it fixed. I'd rather have a little extra money in that account so we can keep those vehicles active on the road. So the transfer before you is $25,000 within the police budget, moving it into the repairs and maintenance line.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the line item transfer of $25,000 from 1-210-192-0000, labor, skilled and professional, to maintenance of vehicles, account 1-210-821-000, in the amount of $25,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Is it odd that two different vehicles both had the windshield wiper washer not function?
Not today, it ain't.
No.
Are they the same type of vehicle?
Car 20,
24.
I'm sorry, I haven't learned all the car numbers yet.
Car 28 and car 24.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be an SUV, but I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if 28's an
I just find it odd. I
SUV.
was wondering if it was
It's
a
probably a
defect from.
recall item that
Yeah.
you can't get recalled anymore.
Any other questions? All in favor? Unanimous? 25-06, proposed line item transfer.
This one's coming out of our land use our land use department. There's been several Connecticut associations of zoning enforcement Casio training expenses for land use staff in the fiscal year 2025. Additionally, a portion of the funds were previously used to train staff who are no longer with the town, leaving the current employees without the necessary training. Travel was also required to attend this training, but a town vehicle was not available at the time. As the building official position has been vacant, but temporary staffing with part-time, there will likely be a surplus. So we're asking to move $1,910 from the building official salary line into the training and education line for $820, memberships, dues, and subscriptions of $1,010, and finally, the vehicle allowance of $80. Going back to when we repaired the Jeep Compass, this was one of the items when the Jeep Compass wasn't working that Mr. Green actually took his personal vehicle down to the training, and that's why you'll see the vehicle allowances. We did not have a vehicle to loan him for the day to go down to the training.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Selection approve the line item transfer of $1,910 from account 1-148-190-0001, building official, to training and education 1-148-811-0000, in the amount of $820, membership dues and subscriptions, account 1-148-814-0000, in the amount of $1,010, and vehicle allowance, account 1-148-819-0000, in the amount of $80.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bill. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Item D, discussion cannabis zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in your packet, and I hope you had a chance to review, are the current regulations for our cannabis establishments. I did receive an email from Planning and Zoning. They are looking to possibly revise, look at, alter our cannabis regulations. And they had reached out to me to reach out to the Board of Selectmen to ask them if they see anything that they would like changed. They are not going to guarantee anything, but anything that they potentially should be looking at, putting on their radar, debating. This is an opportunity for all of you to reach back out to Planning and Zoning to say, hey, for this cannabis regulation, we should be doing this. Can you debate this and look at that? So this is something that they're potentially looking at, altering the regulations, making the regulations a little bit different. They all wanted to hear from you exactly what you thought of the current regulations and if they should be looking to change any of the current regulations into something else. So I open it up for discussion, debate, conversation.
Questions? Comments? Concerns?
I think one of the questions that comes up, because isn't there currently a proposal in the works, and I think the 200 feet from the boundary line is becoming, is one of the issues. And I realize it's, boundary line away from residential or a school or daycare, place of worship or playground. Is there any adjustment to that number that we think makes any sense, or do we want to handle that on a per case basis?
Is that a question
To the board.
To the
it's
bo- I
just
was just
kind of
wondering.
discussion, really. See if anybody has any
Well,
thoughts
I
on
think
that.
if you're gonna attempt to change these regulations is, once you get through asking us, I think you should hold a little public hearing on them, in terms of if things want to change, because the other regulation that's underneath that with a 200 feet issue, is the location on Main Street. Because when this first came through, there was a lot of discussion about having cannabis in the regulations and whatnot, and then this board, at the time, thought that we wouldn't have it on Main Street. And we thought that it needed to be outside the particular zone that is listed here. So this 200 feet and the issue of somebody that might want one of the inquiring properties is also within within the Main Street area, not just the 200 feet from everything else. And, I know there were a lot of people that were against the marijuana in general. I mean, at the state legislature, it wasn't voted on by everybody. And now here it is. And so I think it's, it's something that goes beyond us if we're going to change some of these regulations.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting it's up to us to change them, but just, we can certainly discuss it and have some input.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying that the other step is to, if we are going to change more, I think, and I'm sure planning and zoning, if they were going to change any of these regulations, they would hold a public hearing, but not everybody knows about these things. You all know we don't have a newspaper anymore, and so we don't have local reporters. So I think there's a real difficulty right now for people knowing what was actually happening. I think, something like this may be out there, and it would be good to have, a formal way, for people to have anything that they'd like to say. I mean, there's both sides to the issue on it. So how, where, there are certain things within 200 feet that might be appropriate, and there's certain places where 1,000 feet wouldn't be appropriate, right? Like if you were to put it next to, I don't think it would be good at the entrance of Williams Avenue heading up towards the high school, right? And that's over 200 feet. But if it was on the other side of Main Street, across from, let's say, Hinsdale, would that be appropriate, within the 200 feet, down across it? So I think some of them might be, as you said, Paul, site-specific, special exceptions that maybe could be carved out or allowed to be carved out, kind of like what happens on ZBA sometimes. So I don't know that I wouldn't be in favor of taking away or changing a lot of this into a lesser amount or within inclusion within Main Street, personally, but.
So what's interesting is once you get off Main Street, right, and you're starting looking at areas for business, how many of those are close to residential, because you're off of Main Street at that point, right? So, and it's interesting, and there's a lot of adapting to this new, the fact that cannabis is legal, and we have to adjust our thinking to it, right? I mean, we allow liquor stores in various areas that we don't allow this. And I'm not suggesting we change it. I just want to kind of get some dialogue going so we all can think about how we're handling this. And again, looking for opportunities. This is an opportunity that would create revenue in the town.
Right, so that's when we watch how much money, goes in at the facility that's on the town's border, right? So our town border, the money goes to Torrington. And we know that there's residents from here that, well, anywhere, right? So we know that a cannabis retail facility would probably give us more revenue than a micro grow. So a retail facility would be there, but then you talk about devices, right? But then we allow tobacco sales in town, and tobacco kills more people than any of the drugs. If you look at, you know, the lung cancers and whatnot, and then we look at the number of, you know, permits for everything. So I guess has to be a balance, and I think some of these regulations were meant to keep it away from kids, or not have it so prominent so that kids think it's something that they should have too, but.
I'm wondering, is there any data from the police department about any infractions of people driving under the influence of cannabis? Or any activity with cannabis? That would be something I would be curious about. You know, criminal behavior.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I love the question. I think, for my own personal knowledge, I'd like to know.
There
but I
was a
think-
report from the chief, and there was nothing in it about that.
Yeah.
But I do see in the paper that there were drug-related investigations and issues, and I'm just wondering if there's any incidents about cannabis.
Linda, for my own personal, but obviously for the board and the town, I want to get that data, and that's a great, you'll get an email as soon as I get the data, because as soon as I get it,
Okay.
I'm going to send it
Be
out.
public, it's fine.
Yeah, but, let me find that out. I'm sure the DUI one, or is it, I don't know if it's DUI or DWI, but I'd like to know that if, people are, using and driving and stuff like that, but let's get the data on that for sure.
The other thing too is I would not want to see changed, I actually would like to see enforced, is whether it's tobacco or marijuana, no smoking on public property or within so many feet of public property. Because I think if some of these things went in certain places, there could be more of that. It's the smell piece, it's it's what those of us have to smell.
Yeah, and just since you brought it up, I'll say state law, it's not even a town ordinance, but the state law is 25 feet from a public building, that you can't be smoking.
Yeah,
so,
25 feet does nothing.
Yeah, but that is state law.
Do we have, are we at the same 25 feet?
For the ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, it's not in this ordinance, and I didn't,
Yeah, definitely not. Off the top of my head, I only know the state law, I don't know about, there's a lot of ordinances, so.
The recreation fields, they can't smoke down
They
there.
can't smoke in recreation
smoke
fields, yes.
on school
Yep.
property. Shouldn't be on, in front of our town buildings, it shouldn't even be on the street. But
Other questions?
Yeah, y'all gave me great ideas. I just want you to know I love the public hearing, and
it seems like, I think for us, just from Candy's comments and Linda's comments, it's like we can maintain the regulations a little on the stricter side and use special exceptions when the case requires it, right? If it makes sense.
Item E, municipal solid waste agreement.
So I know we've been batting this around for a little bit. For the record, for the board, for the public, we all know that I am on the Mirror Dissolution Authority, also the chairman of the Finance Committee of the Mirror Dissolution Authority. A budget's about to be proposed. It looks like tip fees are gonna be set at probably 136 or higher. It definitely will not be less than 136. In the past, Mirror has granted opt-outs for for different municipalities. Before you tonight, and what I'm asking is, would the board allow the mayor to pen a letter just asking that even if they set a tip fee at $136, that the town of Winsted would like to opt out and go with a private hauler that brought in rates for not only next year, but for the next 10 years at a much lower rate. I cannot sit here tonight and guarantee you that we will be allowed to opt out of our municipal service agreement, but it never hurts to ask to potentially, and what it ultimately boils down to is next year's rates would, with Mirror Dissolution Authority, would be set at $136 a ton. The contract that we could potentially get into would be set at $128 a ton. That would have two effects. The first effect would be on all of our subscriptions from our residents that are having a private hauler come pick up their trash. They would no longer, those private haulers would no longer be forced to go to the Torrington transfer station. They could go to any transfer station that makes complete sense to them. In fact, lowering the per ton fee, and in fact, hopefully then lowering your subscription that you're currently paying if you are using a private hauler to pick up your trash at home. RRDD1 is another. They have an MSA agreement with Mirror Dissolution Authority. If RRDD1, that would be left up to the board. If they were wanting to opt out of the municipal service agreement, their rates would then drop to roughly would drop to $128 a ton. Todd and I, the mayor and I did the math. That would roughly equate to, is it $60,000 or $40,000? $40,000 savings just for the town of Winsted.
That would be all three towns.
That would be all three towns, excuse me. Would be all three towns in next year's budget that, RRDD1 would be looking to pass, just based on keeping everything the same. That, obviously if they only have to pay $128 a ton versus $136, it would be a $40,000 a year savings. It would multiply throughout the years, because the following year, Mirror Dissolution would set a rate of $141. We would have a rate with the contract at
Fifth year, 131.
131 a ton. And in basically in 10 years, the contract has very little escalation rates, and it would protect, having outrageous fees going through the roof going forward. So before you tonight is just an ask of, could the mayor pen a letter just asking that the town of Winsted potentially be able to opt out of its municipal service agreement with Mirror Dissolution Authority? Open it up for questions.
Yeah, I have a question. It should not be Todd, because he is the RDD1 lead. It should be Paul, as our second selectman, should be penning the letter, or signing it at least, just to keep, the separation there.
So that came up, and the mayor and I spoke this weekend about that. And it's interesting the way RRDD1 works and the town of Winsted works. And we debated this, and 100% the mayor should not be signing a letter on behalf of, RRDD1. But Winsted has its own MSA. So we're talking in total, there's 3,000 tons that are produced at RRDD1. There's 7,000 tons produced by our residents here in town that are being picked up by the private hauler. What we're looking to do is take that 7,000 tons and unlock it potentially from an MSA, which has no bearing on RRDD1. Where I went down the path of should the mayor sign it or should the second selectman sign it, and both the mayor and I came up with, we didn't feel there was a conflict when we were just talking Winsted trash.
Okay, but there would be no reason why Paul couldn't sign it. I mean, and save the whole appearance of, of the fact that he sits at RDD1 as the head administrator of RDD1, and this is a town ask. And so how, anyway, I got another question that I think, when you're shoveling snow and ice, you get to think a lot. And after our last meeting where one of the meetings we were talking about the people that by the pass at RDD1 and those of us that pay at home. So I started thinking about it, and I know I asked you about this, Paul, and so I guess I'll just gonna throw it out there. I would like an analysis done of, I pay now $520 for the year to have trash picked up at my house. And I always thought that it went to RDD1 and it was part of the tipping fees, that the town of Winchester sends over a couple $100,000 a year to RDD1, right, to pay for tipping fees. But through our conversations recently, I learned that it's not paying the tipping fees from my house, it's just paying the tipping fees from people that have a pass and bring the material down to RDD1. So if we're, as a town, paying a couple $100,000 to pay the tipping fee because it doesn't get covered by the passes, what is the subsidy per person, per permit, that is being given for Winston residents down at RDD1?
We can back into the number.
I know you can back into the number.
We just have to find out how many. Is
passes?
that public record? How many passes Winstead residents?
Yes, because it
About
has to be part of the RDD1
1686, I
contract.
believe, not counting contractors from Winston.
1,686.
And then the contractors from Winston are bringing garbage from where?
Wherever they do the work. In the
Wherever they do the
In
work,
the three-town.
right?
So if it's a Winston contractor, most likely they're doing.
So they're
work
not
in
picking up
Winston.
like in Colebrook or anywhere else,
No, they shouldn't be.
right?
Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Mayor, but I do like to just solve answers right away. The assessment,
Well, I mean, you can figure out the numbers just to make sure it's correct.
235,
235?
557.
I mean, I know that when I have things picked up, it's, because I don't go down there, so I save gas and not have to go down there. It's convenient, so I know I'm saving gas, and the hauler has to pick up from my house, so there's a labor charge and a gas charge, and I'm just curious to how much it all works out to now.
$139.71. If 1686 is permit holders, you take the 235 number, it's roughly $139.71 of subsidizing for those permits
From the town of Winchester,
from the town of Winchester.
all taxpayers, because it's all part of the property tax.
Part of the, yes, because the assessment, or the money we give to RRD1 is part of the property, or part of the taxes we levy, yes.
So what the letter would serve to do, if I understand, because there's a lot of moving pieces to this, but if I understand what you just said, first, it allows the private haulers that Candy and I and others pay to come to the house, it allows them to potentially utilize less expensive disposal fees on their side, which they cannot do now. Is that correct?
That is correct. So they are bound also by a municipal service agreement in that any trash that they do pick up in Winstead does need to go to the Torrington Transfer Station, where they're subject right now to $131 a ton that they have to pay. So for every ton that they drop off in Torrington, that contractor that some of our residents have hired has to pay $131 a ton to dump it in Torrington.
So conceivably, if they're able to shop and get a lower rate on their disposal, we could conceivably see savings to residents who pay for private hauling.
But it's $128 you're talking about in the new, right?
So the current, or the possible rate that it would be going to for Mira would be 136, and if we dropped out, it'd be 128.
So $3 a ton.
No,
$8.
$8.
No, if
120.
if my hauler is paying $131 now, and then can go pay $128, that's $3 a ton.
But on July 1st, the rate would be set no lower than 136. Go to
That's from
July
me-
1st.
That's
That's
from,
from the Mira contract. That the MSA that we currently have says that the rate on July 1st, I shouldn't say, it could be higher.
so that's.
It's not going to be lower.
So the private haulers would pay.
The private haulers would pay
136
136
in
on July 1st,
Under the current MSA.
Under the current MSA.
And if we opt out of the MSA, what's the market?
So the average in Connecticut is 116 a ton.
116. So under the MSA required 136, potentially it's $20 a ton that they could be saving, that could potentially, because we all know how that works, but could potentially go down to the residents, yes?
Correct.
Okay. And I mean, it just, anytime you open up and let the haulers bid for the best price they can get, potentially it has a benefit, as opposed to being locked into this 136.
And there is one of the haulers that did put in a bid. They do own a transfer station right here in Winston.
So that's the first aspect of this letter. What else is tied to this letter?
That's simply it, just asking that if they would allow us out of the MSA. There is no guarantee that they would, but I would like to send a message that we do have a less expensive option on the table. And I think, you know, when every dollar matters, and we're talking about trash being picked up, we should do whatever we can to bring in the lowest price possible. And ultimately, I've said this for many years, if trash is being picked up every week, your residents are happy. Don't pick it up for a week, and it gets pretty ugly out there. So I don't believe there's any drop in service. All of the private contractors continue doing what they're doing. They're just no longer chained to dropping off whatever they pick up at residential households. Up at Torrington, they're free to go wherever they wish with it.
And the tip fees for Mira through the last 5 years. Fiscal year '21, it was $91 a ton tipping fee. Fiscal year '22, it was $105 per ton tipping fee. Fiscal year '23, $116 a ton. Fiscal year '24, $118 a ton. Fiscal year '25, $131 a ton, and next year they're projected to go to $136.
You were reading the tier 1 long-term?
Yes.
But, okay. And then in 2026, July 1st, 2026, per the MSA, it would go to 141 a ton.
So when I was in on that meeting, I was under the impression that we were not allowed to leave as long as it was 136 or under. If it went over 136, we could get out.
That is why I said we would ask. There's no
So you're-
guarantee
so
that we
you're-
can opt
okay, I
out.
gotcha.
We're just asking. There has been past precedence of Mira allowing
Allowing
towns
that to
out.
happen.
When I see potential savings, I at least try for them. I cannot guarantee this board that, and I do want to address, to Selectwoman Perez's point, no issue with the second selectman signing it as well. Absolutely none whatsoever. But at least if we can pick up savings, if I can fight, scratch, and try and get us the savings, I at least need this board to enable me to at least go to the battle, to at least try and get us to
So do
save
you
money.
need a motion?
Yes, please, to have the second selectman pen a letter that tries to get us to opt out of our current MSA. I'll draft a letter up.
That's my motion, Glenn.
Is it the town sends a letter to Mira requesting the opt-out of the trash?
Of the MSA,
of the
municipal
M-
service agreement.
Of the MSA
Yep.
for the following year.
It would be
For
just,
for the remaining 2 years. 'Cause
For
we
the
have
remaining
left.
2 years.
it would be a year early, because technically, they don't have to until it goes over 136, then we can get out of it.
No,
That raises every year.
it raises, and there's actually, the contract expires in 2027, so it's 136 July 1st.
And then it goes
The
to
following July it goes to
141.
141.
So at
And
the
then-
end of, in 2027, if they don't let us out now, then we have the option of terminating it in '27?
We have no further contract, but my fear is then
We've
these
lost the
private
good pricing.
haulers know that we have no alternative, and what are the rates gonna be? I can't predict that. I believe now is the time to act, because when haulers know you have no viable option, Mira doesn't exist anymore, you may see prices escalate a lot, so it's worth our shot to take it now to try and save
Because we can get
money.
a 10-year lock-in?
We would, the
be a huge
contract that RRD, the bid that RRDD1 put out was 10 years. We've gone to those haulers and we've asked, would you allow the municipalities to get the exact same deal? And they said yes.
So I'll second Selectman's Lemires motion to opt out.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? All right, so 5 with one exception.
Thank you.
And Mira's not gonna just tell everybody to take a hike, and then everybody else says take a hike, and we're gonna be stuck with garbage, right?
I hope not. So, we'll open,
So the thing with the COG and everything, there is a future, like plan being proposed that won't allow some catastrophe like that to happen, right?
so there's, to answer that question, yes, there's a lot of plans in motion. The biggest fear that I have is if you look at state law, or state statute, DAS becomes the successor of Mirror Dissolution Authority on July 1st, 2025. DAS is under no obligation to continue the MSAs because the state pledge sunsets on June 30th.
Yep.
Now, will a state agency say, well, sorry, go figure it out? Hopefully not, but I'm doing whatever I can to try and protect and make sure our garbage gets picked up. To your answer, or to your question, a lot of moving parts, but the potential of DAS saying, we're not in the trash business, is out there, but I don't see it happening, or it happening.
Item F, EMPG grant.
And again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was brought to my attention, our Emergency Management Director, Mr. Williams, is applying for the yearly EMPG grant, as most of you probably know it's known by. We submitted the grant and he realized we've never passed the resolution allowing the town and myself to apply for the grant. So before you tonight is the resolution that I passed out, giving me the ability to apply for the grant for EMPG. For those that aren't familiar with EMPG, that does offset a lot of the costs associated with the emergency services budget. So that's what I need tonight.
So I make a motion to let Paul sign this resolution.
Well, Glenn would sign it. You're just authorizing me to apply for the
To apply for it.
EMPG grant.
And Glenn can sign it.
I'll second.
Troy, thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
I don't think you would like that.
Item 12, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes. May speak once. Anyone wish to speak? Item 13, selectmen's comments and reports.
I'm just gonna throw this out there really quick. I went to the lecture series at the library, and it was about the post office wars. If you don't know the history, I'd go to the library and check it out, because the East End wanted it on their side, and the West End wanted it on their side, and that's where it all began, where we just bickered with each other for years and years and years, and I'd like to see that end, so. It was quite an interesting thing, so if you haven't had a chance, check it out. Do the lecture series is another one, and there's something else at the Tort Museum with the Revolutionary War. It's quite interesting. Being on the Historic Commission and liking history, it's right up my alley, so.
Anyone else? Item 14, executive session on pending litigation. Centurion's Holding, taking with us the town manager and the town attorney. Have a motion?
Motion.
Or a second?
Second.
And it is at 8:10. Is the blue room open?
Should be open. I'll just note that no action should be taken after this executive session. So if y'all want to wait around for us to come back out, please feel free, but there will be no action after the executive session.
I got 2 words for you, Troy.
just minutes, agendas, whoever's doing that, like the YouTube, finding old meetings on YouTube, it's,
Good, well, hopefully we'll have a little bit better audio coming up.
yeah, the audio's not great, but it's not bad. And I was able to get into the, deeds and maps the other day, and it's, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Glenn, is Mo okay?
He had
Oh, yes, that's
spent some time in the nursing home.
Might as
and
well.
He's back. He had a stent and a pacemaker put in.
Almost 9 o'clock.
By the way, you better get
We're
a
out
lot
way
of
early.
beauty sleep between now and budget season.
Oh, I don't know. He went back.
Okay. We're back from executive session at 8:37 PM. No action to take. Motion?
Like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Good night, everybody.
Irene.
Oh, we can start fixing ourselves.
Fixed?